Hi, I'm Eric Siegel with ericstrains.com, and this is episode 44 of my video train blog series. I'm in the middle of doing some demolition work on the layout because, as I explained in episode 43, I'm removing my good old Atlas turntable and all of the track around it in order to replace it with a much more realistic looking turntable that I bought from Millhouse River Studio. That turntable arrived yesterday, and here it is. This is the 24-inch turntable that Millhouse River Studio makes. It looks great. Now, of course, it's missing all of the hardware that will be on the deck when it's finally installed. That's because all of the hardware is packaged separately when you buy it so that it doesn't break in shipping. So here's all that additional hardware. And again, that'll all be installed once I have the turntable in place on the layout. So there's the new turntable, but before I can install it, I need to remove the old turntable, of course. And as you can see, I've already removed quite a bit of track, but I've still got some to go. So what I'm going to do today is show you how I remove this track and the ballast from around the turntable, and then remove the turntable itself, because all of this ballast is glued down. It's not just sitting there, so you have to loosen it up somehow, and then get the track up in a way that doesn't damage the track. So it's a little bit tricky, but it's not that hard, so I'm going to show you how to do it right now. Okay, so the key to removing all of this track and ballast is to loosen up the ballast, and we do that by finding a solvent that we can pour onto the ballast that will dissolve the glue and loosen it up. Now, the glue that's holding the ballast down is nothing fancy, it's just Elmer's white glue, so any good solvent will work. My first inkling was to use something like acetone, which does work very well to dissolve the glue and loosen the ballast. But you can't pour acetone all over Atlas track because the ties are made of plastic and acetone will melt plastic. So ultimately I decided to use water, the universal solvent, to loosen up the glue. And not just water, but hot water, very hot water, boiling water in fact. Now, in order to eliminate the hassle of going back and forth between my layout and the kitchen to get hot water, today I'm going to use this device to produce hot water. This is called a jet boil, and it's a backpacking stove. My family and I like to do a lot of backpacking, and this is what we take with us when we want to make hot water. Basically, as its name implies, its purpose is to boil water. This thing will boil a cup of water in about 60 seconds, so it's pretty cool. So what we'll do when we go backpacking is we will take some lightweight freeze-dried food with us on the trail, and we'll take the jet boil, and then when we get to our campsite for the night, we'll find some water and purify it, and then put it in the jet boil and get the water boiling and use that to reconstitute some spaghetti and meatballs, and then afterwards we'll make some coffee or some tea or what have you. So it's a pretty handy device, and it cost about $100, but I've gotten a lot of use out of it. I've had it for 8 or 9 years, and it's still running strong. Now, I wouldn't recommend buying one of these just for the purpose of loosening ballast, but I happen to have one, so that's what I'm going to use it for today. Now, if you don't have one of these, which you probably don't, you could use a hot plate to heat up some water, or you could just run back and forth from the kitchen or the faucet to the layout and bring hot water when you need it. But I've got one of these, so that's what I'm going to use. So I'm going to go ahead and fill it up with some water and then fire it up, and then we'll get the water boiling and pour it on the track and the ballast and get it all loosened up so we can remove it. Okay, I've got a cup or two of water in the jet boil, so I'm going to cover it up. It's got a fuel tank down here, and then what you do is you just turn the gas on, and there it goes. And in about a minute or so, it'll get that water boiling, and we'll be good to go. Okay, it sounds like the water's boiling. Let me go ahead and check it. Oh yeah, it's got a rolling boil going on. All right, so I'll kill the flame, and then we'll take it off its stand, set that aside. Now, there's a little spout here, so I'm going to go ahead and just drizzle it over the track and the ballast that I want to take off. So I'm just drizzling the boiling water on top of this ballast, right on top of the track. It won't hurt the track. Now I'm doing it conservatively because I don't want to put too much water down, since there's Homosote underneath the ballast, and that's a paper-based product. I don't want to drench it and have the paper start expanding. So you only want to put down as little as possible to get the job done. Just like that. Alright, so now I've got pretty good coverage on this whole section of track and this section of ballast next to it. So let's give it a minute to soak in, and then we'll start scraping it off. Okay, it's had a couple minutes to soak in, so now I just got a little chisel tool here, and look at that. The ballast comes right up. No big deal. Now, every now and then you'll hit a stubborn spot, maybe where you missed with the water or something like that, and you can just chisel real hard at it, or if it's really stubborn, just put a little more hot water, and that'll loosen it up. And it should start coming up pretty easily. Okay, I've loosened up all this ballast around the track, so now with the screws removed from the track, so there's nothing holding it down, I'll just gently wedge under there and start to pry up the track, just like that. So there's a piece there, and here's one of the Atlas terminal connectors, and I'll just pull that off. Now, the track still has a lot of ballast attached to it, so I'm going to set this aside, and then later on I'll take all of the track and soak it in a big tub of hot water, and that'll help loosen all the rest of the ballast, and then I'll get the track all cleaned up. Now, I should point out now that this works well with Atlas track, because Atlas track will not rust because it's nickel-silver track. You couldn't really do this if you were doing older classical Lionel track, because that tends to rust. So if you did something like that with tubular track, you would have to be really careful to get it really dry afterwards. But with the Atlas track, you don't have to worry because it won't rust. So I'll set that aside. Here's the other terminal joiner. There's the red wire. And I'm just going to keep prying up. And there we go. And there's two more sections of track. I'll set these aside. And now here's the roadbed that was underneath the track. This is the flex bed roadbed that I like to use from Hobby Innovations. So I'm going to start prying that up. Now when I get to this place where the wires are coming out, I'll just tear the roadbed real quick and tear it around the wires. And then just continue down, taking up the roadbed. And there we go. Now, this roadbed, I could probably reuse it if I wanted to, but it's pretty nasty, so I think I'm just going to put down some fresh roadbed. So I'm just going to toss this, but if you're budget-minded, you could save that and reuse it. And now that the track is gone, the only thing to do is just clean up the rest of this ballast that's hanging out here and here. Okay, I've got all the ballast up, and I've got it all piled up right here. Now, again, you could, I guess, theoretically recycle this and use it again, but it's pretty nasty. It's got glue and bits of paper and dirt and all sorts of stuff in there, so I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out and use fresh ballast when I redo the turntable. Okay, that's it. We're all done here. Now, I've left these wires in place for now. I will most likely have to move them when I redo the turntable tracks with the new turntable. But for now, I'm just going to leave them here and move on. So we're going to do the rest of these tracks on the turntable in the same way we did this one. Okay, there you have it. The turntable and all of the tracks around it are now gone. Now, the Atlas turntable is a surface mount turntable. You don't have to cut a hole in the table for it. And so that's why there's just a flat area where the turntable once was. Now, you'll notice that I've drawn a new black circle right there. That is the outline for the new turntable from Millhouse River Studio. but I will show you how to install that in a separate video. For now, that's it. I'm Eric Siegel, and I'll see you next time.